Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our Q&A follow-up for the discussion on final tips for a competitive proposal that we had last time. I'd like to welcome Dr. Celeste Carter, the lead program officer at the National Science Foundation for the NATE program, who is joining us today. Next slide. As a reminder, you are on mute or listen-only mode. But here is how you will be able to ask questions. Janet, would you explain this, please?
Certainly, Anne. Ladies and gentlemen, if you'd be kind enough to look to the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see 4 small icons. If you simply click on the little hand, I will see it when you've raised your hand. I will advise the presenters that there is a question from the audience, and I will give you audio privileges at that time for you to voice your question. And once it is finished and everything has been answered, I will simply close your audio until your next question. So I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Anything else, Anne?
If they have questions, they can ask you questions with respect to raising their hand, I suppose, in the question box also, correct?
Absolutely. I have it open, waiting for any questions that might come in.
And be sure to let us know if somebody types in a question, because I don't have the question box showing on my screen.
No problem.
Okay?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay.
Next slide. As I said, I am very pleased to have Dr. Celeste Carter joining us again. I've already introduced her. She's a great resource. She really wants to work with people. She's very, very helpful. I'm Ann Beheeler. I happen to be the principal investigator for the National Convergence Technology Center, which is basically IT and communications. We are based at Collin College in Frisco, Texas. Next slide. And now we go to the questions, and these are going to be verbal. What we've agreed is I will ask the questions and Dr. Carter will answer. At any point she thinks that I ought to chip in, she will say so, or I suppose I can say so if I come up with some comments to make as well. Let's start off with this. Is it new to have the logic model at the beginning of the project description? If so, what narrative is needed to provide context for the logic model? And I know I said that I put it at the first for my proposal, but Celeste, how would you comment about this?
Well, thank you, Ann, and welcome everybody today to the webinar, and hopefully I'll be able to answer all your questions. I'm never quite sure until I hear them. I would say that the logic model is really a document that helps you prepare your evaluation and assessment plan. And it very much depends on whether or not you want to include that in the body of the proposal. That may be, since it's a one-page document, something that you could refer to and have that in the supplementary documents with a clear explanation of your evaluation and assessment plan in the 15 pages. As Ann said, she does this initially. Most people do not put it at the very front of their proposal.
If they don't put it at the front, though, I have been advised to at least refer to it. I mean, on our previous proposal, we put it actually at the end. It was page 15, just to keep it kind of out of the way. However, we did refer to it significantly all the way through, because actually the logic model guides pretty much the organization of the entire evaluation process and assessment process. And it was recommended by at least one of our reviewers along the way that it needed to be referred to throughout, because they were about ready to tell us we needed a logic model when in fact we had one.
And that's a great point. So I wouldn't argue with that. I would say that as you're discussing the how you will evaluate and assess the success or not so much success of your project, you would refer to the logic model, and it really is kind of a shorthand way of following each activity, how you will assess it, and what you expect, questions, things that you expect to see. So definitely you could refer to it throughout the evaluation and assessment portion of the project description. And if you can include it in that 15 pages, that everyone always says, well, 15 pages sounds like a lot when you start writing, but then when you get to the point where you have put everything down that you want, you suddenly find that you're over 15 pages and you're trying to be more concise and cut some verbiage out of your project description. So that would be a case where if it fits, great, include it. If it doesn't, I think you can make a case that it would be a one-page supplementary document.
Anne?
Yes.
We have a question from Jeff. Actually, he has two questions. Would you like them now?
Sure.
Okay. The first one is, can the equipment cost be incurred in a single year, or must they be budget incurred over each of the 3 years? The second
Dr.
question.
Carter?
Oh, okay.
Why don't we do one at a time?
Sure.
Okay, that's an easy one, especially like if you're setting things up and you really need all that equipment at once, you need to request it all at once, and you explain that. You say this is, if we're going to actually go forward and do whatever the course content is, we've got to have the equipment. What you'll end up with is a slightly skewed budget that isn't going to look exactly even each year, but that's something that I think that reviewers are pretty used to, and you want to just explain it. So yes, you can front load your equipment.
Okay, the second question is, can the budget line for computer services be used for equipment purchases, or is it for software subscriptions or consulting?
Ooh, computer services. Hold on, let me whip out a proposal here.
Well, how about I talk about what we've done?
Okay.
Under computer services, we have in fact included subscriptions or anything that we had to have for software, that sort of thing. Not purchase of software, but actually the actual subscriptions for software. However, we also, under supplies, some of our computers and some of our software, well, not software, but some of our devices, at least at this point, are less than $500, less than $5,000, depends upon.
I think it's 5,000.
Well, yeah, it's 5,000 for NSF, but some of the, well, it depends on the college rules too, but less than 5,000 can go under supplies. However, I would point out, and this is very important, that in general, the computers that get purchased are specifically for purposes of achieving the grant goals. The computers that are used are laptops that are used by staff. In general, it's better if those are funded out of the hard money budget, and then of course the college is going to get the indirect to then replace those funds. Do you agree, Dr. Carter?
Yeah, I absolutely do. And one thing you will find in the solicitation is that the program can't set up computer labs for you. You know, it's if you said, well, I need, our computers are old, we can't run X, Y, or Z, so you need to buy us 30 more computers and it'll be used by lots of students. That's not an allowable cost. Now, if it's something where it's something new and you're setting it up and you are actively using it for some of the students that are maybe doing something specific to your project goals and objectives and your staff, then that is allowable. But NSF figures that if you're going to have computer labs, that's a cost that your institution should be covering for you.
Thank you. Any more questions, Janet?
Not at this time.
Okay, well that worked out fine for you to just bring them up when they came up. Here's another question left over from last time. One of our attendees said that the PAPPG, if you'll remember, that's the Policies and Procedures Guide, they're saying that it does not allow letters of support that are personalized. They used to allow for them, but not now. Do you think the SGA for ATE will allow for personal letters of collaboration?
Yes, and this is a big change. Pretty much what they're saying in the PAPPG is that what they want to see is a single like 2 sentences from any collaborator that says, we agree we're going to do what is listed in the project description, which would mean everything has to be detailed in the project description. Remember that a solicitation, a program solicitation trumps the PAPPG, and the ATE program will still allow a pretty much just letters of commitment. So if it's an industry partner, you know, the industry partner would say maybe something like, I commit to support 3 students a year in internships in this company. A general letter of support has not been allowed for a long time. The one, oh, I think so-and-so is a great person and this is a wonderful institution and the students are great and please support this project. Those letters for quite a while have been, they can literally make your proposal be returned without review. So those general support letters, they're not allowed under any circumstances, but a substantive partnership where the partners are saying, this is what we are committing to do, this is still allowed with the ATE program.
Speaking of things that cause a proposal to be returned without review, is there a short list of key items that cause that?
Well, the easy ones are which I think everybody will think is kind of funny, but submitting your proposal late, right? In that case now, it used to be that there would be a window of time after the 5 p.m. deadline where you could still submit a proposal and it would be accepted, at which point I would be looking at the timestamp saying that, you know, this came in really too late and it's going to be returned without review. At this point, there is an automatic checker that's been put into place in the NSF system, and your proposal won't be accepted at all. Other things would be if you think, well, 15 pages at the font size specified in the PAPPG is just not enough space. How about if I change my font size and make it smaller and I reduce my borders? Those sorts of things can still get your proposal returned without review. Just not being responsive to the solicitation. You know, maybe I've seen one very interesting proposal came in by someone who wanted funds to restructure and design a new wetsuit. That was returned without review as it was not responsive to technician education programs, which is the mission and goal of the ATE program. So I think use your common sense. You know, read the PAPPG carefully, read the solicitation carefully. It's pretty self-explanatory.
And what happens if they upload a PDF for the project description and it's got 20 pages? Do you let that go or not?
Oh no, that's something that will be returned without review. And there have been restrictions and will continue to be restrictions on the number of supplementary documents you can submit as well. So if you think, well, gee, I've only got 15 pages, so I'll write my 15 pages, and then in supplementary documents I'll upload another 30 or 40. That can actually get your proposal returned without review as well.
I would like to caution folks too, sometimes I will see on my side that I have 15 pages, and then once I upload it and PDF it on, or that my PDF is uploaded to the FastLane system, sometimes it decides to run a few lines over onto the 16th page. So be sure when you have the opportunity to review what got uploaded, be sure to review that and make sure that it did not get creative with your work.
Anne?
That's a great point.
We do have another question.
Okay.
Jeff once again wants to clarify, his program is brand new. That would involve electronic tablets that students can use in the new program. Is this an allowable cost? The cost of the tablets.
Dr. Carter?
Okay, so I'm going. So I'll ask another question, Jeff, of you, which is this the type of thing? This sounds a little bit like a a project where students are going to have to be maybe outside using tablets to gather data that are very specifically for this new program. If that's the case, yes, you write that up and you say, this is not something that the institution supports. This is something that is really very specific to to what I am proposing to do. So I think that the big thing to remember is that you can ask for things in a budget. The reviewers are cautioned not to look at your budget. They are cautioned to read your 15-page project description and rate your proposal based on the intellectual merit you have described and the broader impacts that you've described. If something comes up in your budget and it reviews really well, let's just say every reviewer gives you an excellent. So then a program officer is going to be looking at it very carefully, reading to see if they agree with that excellent rating, and they're also going to scrutinize the budget very carefully. At that point in time, they may have questions for you. But the thing to remember is that if you've submitted a proposal and you get questions from a program officer, realize that we are told not to send questions and start a dialogue with a prospective principal investigator unless we want to go forward and recommend your proposal for award. So it's a really good thing if you get questions, and sometimes you may be told, you know, you asked for 40 laptops and we can't supply all of those, but are you willing to negotiate and compromise a little? Things like that can come up in a budget negotiation. So so you ask. You may not get all of your ask, but definitely ask.
Dr. Carter, I would like to make a comment with respect to the budget. Maybe it's just for centers, but whether the reviewers are supposed to look at the budget or not, I have had some of our comments from our reviewers actually refer to the budget and things they like or don't like in the budget, or saying maybe there's not enough money there to pull off various different things, or we're trying to spend money for things that we shouldn't spend money on. So yeah.
So that's an issue that we cover in the pre-reviewer webinars and also in instructions to reviewers, and I will say they pretty much always look at the budget, and what I tell them is you can make any comment you want about the budget as long as you qualify your statements by saying that this did not affect the way you rated the proposal. So generally, I will tell people to put that, you write something about intellectual merit, strengths and weaknesses, you write something about broader impacts, strengths and weaknesses, and then in a summary statement you could say, although this didn't impact the way I rated this proposal, I don't think these people have asked for enough money to do all the activities that they've listed. And I really think this is a great proposal. You, the program officer who reads this, should really look at this. That kind of thing is fine, because they're saying that they didn't change their rating because they thought there was a problem with your budget.
Okay, that's good clarification. Here's another question. What do you recommend we do until the SGA comes out? Should we just wait? Should we get started? If so, how? I'm concerned about wasting time.
Okay, so since one of the things we're always telling everybody is start early, and you've got a project idea, I would basically use the structure that you see in the old solicitation to get started, but realize that when the new solicitation comes out, you're going to want to read it very carefully and make sure that you're still on track. I can tell you that I was in someone's office today asking them, please, could they please look over the program management plan and let me know if I can put it into final clearance, and they said they would let me know by Monday. So I'm hoping I'll be able to hit that, start submitting for final clearance through the agency on Monday, and I can't really tell you how long that'll take. Sometimes they zip through, and sometimes people have things like they've caught typos that I haven't caught, but it should come out soon. I would certainly start mapping out your ideas. You know that, there's those kind of 5 questions that really help you get started. One is, what's your need? Why are you going to write a proposal anyway? What is the need? And then number 2 is, how are you going to meet that need? So that's what are the activities that you're proposing. Third is, do you have the right set of people with the right expertise? So that's building your team. 4 is how are you going to know if you're successful? That's your evaluation and assessment of each activity that you're proposing. And then the final one is how are you going to tell other people about it, because this is federal taxpayer money that would be supporting your project, and nobody wants to see it just stay in one location. You want to be able to tell people about all of us want to have successes, but sometimes you've learned something really important where you thought a strategy would really work, and maybe you found that with your particular group of students it didn't. That might be something else you want to point out to people. So I would definitely say get started, and then hopefully the solicitation will be out soon.
Okay. This brings up something else. For a single project, can it be done totally at a given college for all of the work? Is it better to have partners? Does it review better if you have partners? And does it vary for the new to ATE versus the full projects for ATE?
You know, it really doesn't, although you always need some partners, right? Because you can't get away from the ATE program requiring that you have industry partners. But as far as other educational institutions and trying to do something at several different institutions at the same time, you do not have to do that. A lot of times that's something that you've already got some pilot data, and you actually have people calling you saying, hey, what about if we write a proposal together and we try and disseminate this broadly, and we adapt and implement it at our 2 other campuses or whatever. But a project, even a full project, can definitely be something that is located at your institution. You just want to tell other people what happens. Let them know how it goes.
Anne?
Yes, sure, go ahead.
Okay, we have another question, this time from Matthew, and he would like to know, does the ATE program anticipate offering the ATE coordination networks option in the new ATE program?
Yes, that's an easy one.
Oh, good.
Definitely.
Good. Love those one-word answers. Okay, yeah. Another question kind of aligned with the business involvement is saying that a college has a business advisory council good enough to document business involvement, or does there have to be something more?
Okay, I'm going to speak from my experience of having had a business and advisory group at my campus for my biotechnology program when I was a faculty in California. They ended up having nothing to do with my ATE project. I needed industry that would commit to, you know, whether it was working with me on developing curriculum, providing internships for students, coming and doing seminars on their company and pitching students. That generally was not something I would get from my advisory board. Most of the general advisory boards want to come to your campus once a year, and you and your dean check off a box and say, we had our advisory board meeting and we're done.
And have good food. Always have good food.
Right. Yes. So the ATE program really wants you to develop a partnership with industry, and that's more than just having people show up once a year for good food and talk generally about your program and then they leave.
Okay. Okay, one other question here. Let's switch. What if what are the qualifications for a reviewer? It was suggested that one of the ways to really learn how these things review is volunteer to be a reviewer. What are the qualifications for a reviewer?
Pretty broad, really. If you think about your area of expertise and the ATE program can support high school teachers as reviewers, community college faculty, four-year faculty, industry, potentially some grant writers. If you have a grant writer that's very, very interested, there's a potential that we can use a grant writer. Maybe even somebody that's you've contacted either at an economic development agency or workforce investment board, or even a trade association that's really interested in coming in and providing their input and expertise that's relevant to technician education, we can use any and all of the above. And there's a couple of different ways you can let me know or let my division of undergraduate education know. There is a link on the Division of Undergraduate Education site that says, would you like to be a reviewer? Click here. And you can put in, you can actually upload your resume or your CV, and you can say I'm interested in reviewing, and you can list the programs. Or if you want to be a little more specific and you really want ATE, send me an email that just says I'm really interested in reviewing. I've attached my resume or CV to this email. Please contact me and let me know. One thing to remember, I hold on to all of those, is that the review panels for the ATE program are generally in the first week of December. We will start inviting people in September. So if you haven't heard from me by September, send me another email and say, not trying to bug you, right? Just want to let you know I sent you an email in April telling you I wanted to be a reviewer, and I'm just reminding you of that. I'm fine with that. That's not something that I think is a bad thing to do.
For the faculty member that's on the review panel, do they need to know the discipline area?
It really it really depends. We need disciplinary expertise, but sometimes it depends on what the proposals, what the collective set of proposals is doing. I mean, probably the easiest answer for that on centers panels is we have centers all across these different areas supported by the ATE program, so we never have a centers panel that has everybody with one disciplinary expertise. You know, maybe we need IT people, we need engineering, we need manufacturing, we need, you name it. Depending on the portfolio of proposals that are submitted, we have to look at that as well, and then think about who would be best suited to be on a particular panel.
Okay. On a project panel, though, I wonder if it's more likely to have faculty that are closer to the discipline, if it's specific discipline related.
It
not.
is. I mean, let's just say I'll pick my field, which was biotechnology. Generally, biotechnology, if we don't have enough to form one entire panel, biotechnology and chemtech, chemical technology, end up getting put together. So if that's the case, the disciplinary people we would need on that particular panel really would be people for the discipline knowledge. We'd need either people who are, have biology or cell biology degrees, and chemists. So again, that's a good call, Anne, that we do need the discipline-specific people as well.
Anne?
Yes, sure.
We have somebody with their hand up, Lynn. So I'm going to open her audio now so she can voice her own question. Go ahead.
Oh my.
Go ahead,
Oh my,
Lynn.
thank you so very much. I wasn't expecting to be able to talk. So my question is, I don't know, maybe you guys have already answered this, and I apologize. Would be very interested in because it would also help make me a better participant on a grant writing team. But do reviewers receive any kind of a stipend for participating as a reviewer?
Yes, you do. Not that it's going to cover the number of hours that you're going to spend, because having been on both sides of this endeavor, I know that after having come to the National Science Foundation once as a program officer and then gone back to my institution. So I had like 2 years of experience reading proposals. Even with that kind of experience, a lot of proposals, I'd be working on them for at least a couple of hours each. And you're going to have 10 to 12 proposals to read. So that adds up. So what we do is we do provide you with a stipend. We also pay your travel to come to Washington for basically a day and a half of meeting with everybody else who read the same set of proposals that you did, and each one is discussed in turn with one panelist named as a scribe, basically to write up what the discussion was about. not reiterating what individual reviewers said, because those reviews have already been submitted, but what were some of the big topics that came up that everyone talked about during this meeting? So yes, there is some pay. It's just not a lot.
And if I'm not mistaken, you pay for our airfare, but
Yes.
the hotel we need to take out of the stipend, correct? Pretty sure that's
correct.
the case. And any
That's
food
correct.
cost. So it's not a full ride in terms of travel.
Okay, we have another question. One of the details which we find the hardest to gauge is the quote-unquote right amount of time to allocate to the PI versus distributing project-related work among multiple senior personnel. Do reviewers typically favor more centralized versus distributed allocation of project work?
So I would say it depends on what the activities are. You know, let's just say that your principal investigator is the person that is the go-to person for the disciplinary content, but you also need somebody that's going to be your liaison with and partner with industry. Or, I mean, it really depends on the project. I mean, Anne, you can probably respond to this one too.
Sure. From having led grants for a long, long time, I'll say this. I think the PI needs to know enough about the discipline to handle it, perhaps be a faculty member directly in the discipline, maybe not. I started as a dean, but I was also teaching. And the other thing I would say is that in terms of actually executing the project, it's important that that person have the, I guess I'll call it the senior decision-making role for the project, because oftentimes this sort of thing can get very bogged down with, let's just call it bureaucracy that we have within a college. And but I would say that that person should not hesitate to use college facilities, not like rooms or anything, but college programs, college departments, accounting people, PR people, that sort of thing. Use them rather than trying to do that sort of work on their own. I think it comes down to explanation. You have to explain it and explain it well. Whatever you want to do, you need to explain it well.
I agree.
Okay, anything else on so far, Janet?
Yeah, and for whoever asked that question, was that an adequate answer? Because I mean, it isn't really one or the other. It really depends on what your activities are.
Okay, well, oh, yes, this was helpful. So thank you.
Okay, good.
Very good. Okay, everything has been asked so far.
Okay, let's go back to the reviewers. What constitutes a conflict of interest for a reviewer? If I submit my proposal this year, can I be a reviewer?
We've got a little bit of leverage in the ATE program because there are 3 tracks in the program, and I actually had the lawyers at NSF help me write the management plan. So this is just for instance. The 3 tracks are centers, projects, and targeted research on technician education. So let's say you submit a project, but you have expertise in doing research projects similar to what would come into targeted research on technician education. You could ask to be a reviewer on that track. You cannot review on the project track. So you're not going to be able to review in the track for which you actually submitted a proposal. The other things would be, let's say that a colleague of yours from your institution submitted a project proposal. You also still couldn't review for the project track because your institution is in that pool. And you know, there's a few others. If you have a family member that is at an institution, if let's say you're invited to review, and you open up your packet of proposals and you go, oh, look at that! It's X university, and my son started there, their daughter started there this year. You have an automatic conflict of interest with that proposal, regardless of where it's being submitted from in the university. Ultimately there's one that's kind of what we call the stomach test. You know, if for some reason you just feel uncomfortable, maybe you know the person, you may not have collaborated with them, but you know them well enough that you feel like you can't be objective in reviewing a proposal. You can actually talk to a program officer about things like that. But some of the definite ones are same institution. If your advisor for your graduate work is you have a lifetime COI with any student that has gone through that is now submitting a project in the program, you have a lifetime conflict of interest with. So there's some ones that we go over when we do the pre-panel webinars for everybody, so that you'll know and you can let the program officer running your panel know that you have a conflict of interest. One of the reasons we try and have a diversity of people on a panel, and hopefully, you know, more than one person with a specific expertise, is just for that reason. If someone, you know, looks and says, well, you know, I can review the other 9 proposals or 10 proposals, but I can't review this one, there will be enough reviews coming in that we can move forward.
Okay. What if the reviewers do not agree on their ratings or on the strengths and the weaknesses?
Oh, that's when you guys make it a whole lot more work for us as program officers. We do not ask that you reach consensus, and I know I have sitting in front of me a proposal that came into another program, and it has 2 excellents and 2 fairs. Oh. And I have to write up a review analysis that explains what our rationale was for either going forward or not going forward with that proposal. It makes it kind of it makes the job kind of exciting on my end, and you know, I have to read very, very carefully and then make my own set of decisions about how I would rate the proposal if I were just a standalone reviewer. I incorporate all of that into my review analysis and comments to the prospective PI.
So on that note, you said that the ratings range from poor to fair to good to very good to excellent. Are there guidelines for what each of those mean?
Well, you know, people do that a little bit differently as well. You know, sometimes you'll read a proposal and trying to think of a way to say it. The writers are really slick. You know, it's like, boy, everybody on that panel just thinks this is like amazing, just absolutely amazing. And then one reviewer says, well, I didn't actually see any definitive understanding from them of how they were going to assess student learning. Did you guys see that? So you know, things like that start coming out that's one of the reasons everybody comes here and we discuss them together, is that that gives people an opportunity to discuss. You can change your ratings. I mean, maybe you say, man, I got snowed by somebody who was really a slick writer, and I agree with you now. I actually don't see that they covered, you know, some points very adequately. So we ask that if you're going to change your rating, you also rewrite your review. But that's perfectly fine to do it. For the most part, what you're doing is you're looking at the criteria for intellectual merit and broader impact that are written both in the grant, the PAPPG, Proposals and Policies Award Administration Guide, and also in the solicitation, because ATE adds some extra things, like you know, what is the potential for this project to establish strong industry partnerships and to really educate highly qualified students that industry is going to want to hire. That's specific to ATE. broad intellectual merit, you know, is this going to advance the STEM learning environment for students, that kind of thing, that you're going to find in the PAPPG. So as a reviewer, you sit down and you look at all those. I know some people will actually develop their own rubric. They'll pull those out and they'll put them in a spreadsheet, and they sit there checking off boxes as they read proposals. The big thing is that nobody writes a perfect proposal. You know, even a proposal where the preponderance of reviewers give it excellence, a lot of times they'll say, you know, we think this was a really neat idea, but you know, it could be strengthened if they did A, B, C, and D. So they gave it an excellent rating, but there's still things that could be fixed that would make it even better. So, you know, you put together the best proposal that you can. Nothing is going to be perfect, but you do try and be responsive to the criteria that are listed under intellectual merit and broader impacts.
Okay. Another question, can a university be the lead for an NSF ATE grant, and are there any special considerations if they are allowed to be lead?
So they are allowed to be lead, but the requirement in the solicitation says that community college faculty have to have significant leadership roles on the project. So what I would expect to see, maybe the PI would be from the 4-year, but the co-PIs would be from one or more community colleges, and the impact of the project needs to be on the students who are on the community college campus. Not that there can't be a pathway to the 4-year, but a transfer programs is not something that the ATE program is looking for. We're looking for students who are highly skilled and qualified for the jobs that require more than a high school degree and less than a 4-year degree as defined by industry. So yes, a 4-year institution can be the lead fiscal agent, but you got to have community college faculty in there.
Okay. Another question, I think we covered this along the way, but let's do it again. What about overloads for faculty who normally carry them? I understood that faculty could not carry overloads and work on the grants. Is there something new that allows them to continue overloads?
Yes. There is, and this has been a real sticking point for a while, and so I went up to the policy people and talked with them about that, and what you will see now in the solicitation that I hope is going to be coming out soon is that as long as your institution has a written policy that says an overload is okay, and it applies across the boards, not just to you because you're in line to get a federal award, but across the boards, then you can keep your overload. You might ask for a slight reduction in the courses you're teaching. You can keep your full overload, but you might say, okay, so I want to drop one course because I'm going to be working on the project to do that. But you don't have to drop your overload as long as your institution has a policy that says it's okay. I know one of the rotators currently working on ATE is from Harold Washington College of the City Colleges of Chicago. They have a written policy that says any faculty member can teach up to 6 units a year of overload for whatever reason. So that would be the kind of thing you want to make sure your institution has a written policy about that, and then it's fine. NSF isn't going to say anything about, oh, no, you know, you can't do your overload.
Should you specify that in the proposal or the budget justification?
I think it'd be great if you put it in the budget justification.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's actually a relief. That's terrific. Yeah. Okay. My college has an indirect rate, but they're willing to forego that rate in order for us to have more funds to accomplish our work. Is this acceptable? If not, why not?
Okay, so it used to be acceptable kind of across the boards, and then the powers that be at the National Science Foundation decided that that was a form of in-kind support. So what you can do is on the budget form itself, your institution has to use the fully negotiated indirect rate. Okay, so let's say it's 50%, all right? It's going to be down there, and it's going to be 50%, but it's 50% of something, right? It's how they negotiate it. It could be of wages only, or it could be of total direct cost. However they negotiated it, you have to ask for it. What your institution does with those funds is between you and the institution. So if you go in ahead of time and say, you got to claim it all, but it doesn't mean that you guys should keep it all, will you turn this back? That's between you and the administrators at your institution. But you can't say, okay, our indirect rate is 50%, but we're only going to ask for 10% because we want more money going towards this project. They've got to take it and then give it back to you.
Okay. Another thing, my college has an indirect rate for off-campus and an indirect for on-campus. Can we just use the off-campus rate, which is lower?
So Anne, you might be able to respond to that, but I would say it's going to depend on where your activities occur. If everything you're doing is on campus, your institution might come down on you and say, oh, no, 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 this is on campus. If you're holding, you know, workshops or whatever at off-site locations, then you can use the off-campus. And Anne, what do you say?
Yeah, well, we're a national center and almost everything we do is outwardly facing. So we have justified using the off-campus rate for everything we're doing. What I find is that when it gets to the Division of Grants and Awards, as long as you've used one of the rates that's on your letter, and as long as you've explained what you're doing, that it goes through, there's not a problem. I've also seen times when we have submitted a proposal that part of it is charged at the on-campus rate, that part of it that's actually done on campus, and then the other part has been charged at the off-campus rate, which is a lesser rate. And that works out fine too. The accounting gets a little messy if you're going to have two rates involved, but in fact it gets a lot messy. But it is really important to go ahead and claim one of those, the rates that is actually on your letter. And if you don't have a letter, if you'll recall, you can take the 10% de minimis rate, but then I highly recommend you go after getting an indirect rate once you have an award. Okay, here's another thing. You said that we needed to know what other colleges or consortiums were doing work in our area that's funded by National Science Foundation. And I understand how to find the abstract and how to find the name of the PI, and I can probably figure out how to email them. But what if we email them and they do not respond? How are we going to find out what they are doing if they won't respond to us?
Right. So if they don't respond, you can actually at least say that you are aware that there are other awards in the same area, and that if your proposal goes to award, and you can actually say this, you know, if this proposal reviews well, we have tried to connect with some of these people already. We feel that if the award goes through, they will be more willing to contact us and work with us. So it's more the you don't want to do the you get to references cited page and there's only one word on it, and that word is none. You want your reviewers to know that you've looked at the portfolio, you realize there are other things there, and that if it's at all possible, you know, you've read the abstract. Like let's just say you read an abstract and it's basically your project idea. You would very much like to know, and at that point, I'm trying to think whether or not it puts the phone number for the person. Definitely has their email on that. When you go to the abstract, their email is there. And what you might, you know, I would say what you'd try is being persistent. You know, another possibility is sometimes that system is not as up to date as what we, the program officers, know. Like, I don't know, let's say somebody's out on maternity leave, or somebody is moved to a different institution and there's a different principal investigator that's put in there, and the system hasn't been updated. You could always email me and or any other program officer and say, look, I've been trying to contact these people and I'm not getting anywhere. Do I have the right name and address for this person as far as their email contact information? And we can definitely look that up for you and let you know.
Okay. And in terms of the contacts with others that might be in our area, where would we put that in the proposal? Where does that belong? Let's say we've contacted some of them.
Well, it kind of depends. You can say that you are aware of these things. Now, is there something that they would provide you? If they would provide you with something so you didn't have to reinvent the wheel, you'd put that in there, right? You'd say,
right.
We've actually talked with so-and-so. They have an introductory IT course that covers the networking that we want to do, and they're going to share that with us, and we're going to see if we can't adapt it at our institution so we don't have to do all this from scratch. That would be under your activities.
Okay.
That these people would be willing to work with you and share.
Okay. And another question. 15 pages is not much.
Yeah.
Do you have ideas on how to show goals, objectives, activities, responsibilities, and timeline in a compact manner? And while you answer that, I'm going to answer someone at my door real quickly because they're not going away.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I think that's hard. I think that's where if you have somebody, I don't know, maybe you need somebody who's really good at editing, because a lot of times, although we don't think we've been too wordy and we haven't really repeated ourselves, we have. And I know, probably one of the hardest ones to write is a 15-page center proposal, and people do it. So it is possible to do. Timelines are in there. Goals and objectives are in there. It's one of the best things you could do, though, is give your draft of a proposal to someone that you haven't been talking to about this project at all, along maybe with somebody in your English department that teaches writing, and say, to the English person, would you edit this? Would you just look at this as far as, content and take out extraneous words and things like that? And to the person that you give it to for reading for content, you could say, do you really understand? Did I make my case? Did I tell the story really well? What the need is, what we're going to do to meet that need, why we have the people we have, how we know we're going to be successful, and how we're going to tell other people about it. Those 5 things go a long way towards helping you craft a really competitive proposal.
And I'm not sure exactly what you said, but because the person at my door wanted a signature and was not going to leave. Well, that happens. Anyway, I will say that we have a manner for showing goals, activities, objectives, responsibilities, and timeline all in a table. And if anybody wants to contact me, I can show you how that works. It's kind of a balancing act, because making what's in the columns be similar in length so that you don't waste a lot of space is important. But it does tend to help, and it makes you be able to get an awful lot of information in a very short space. That's all I have in terms of questions today. Janet, do we have others, or does anybody else care to ask another question?
I don't have any waiting. If anybody wants to pose a question, by all means, please do. You can either raise your hand, or you can just send me a question in the question box, and I'll be happy to relay it. So if we could, please let me know.
We can wait a couple of minutes about that. But the other piece, I missed one question. Is it appropriate to prepare the logic model in a landscape format, or should it be portrait? We don't care, do we?
No. And okay. From what I've seen of most logic models, and including the one that I have to include in the program management plan for the ATE program, landscape generally works way better.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. Jeff just got back to us and said, Anne, could you email me your grid that you just spoke about? And he provided the email address, which I will provide to you later.
I would be happy to, and that's great.
Okay.
I would also comment that, remind everybody that we have High Tech coming up. That's a conference that is an NSF ATE conference in Salt Lake City, 17th through the 20th of July. And on the 21st, Dr. Carter will be there, as will several of the PIs for centers. And we will be working with you or whoever else shows up who regarding the same kinds of things that we've been talking about on the last 4 webinars and the last 4 Q&A sessions. I would invite you to come to that. It's free. It'll last from 8:30 to 12:30, and it's going to be an opportunity to get total hands-on help. However, that's the end of July. I absolutely would not wait until then to start my grant. I've said before that you can't start it early enough, because best laid plans end up sometimes not turning out very well because, well, things get in the way. Things happen. Also, too, I would remind people that it's a good idea to try to have your grant proposal completed at least a month ahead of time, so that you can get various people to act as mock panelists and review it and give you honest feedback, and then you have time to actually work with that feedback. If you have them review it the day before and then they say, oh my gosh, you missed the mark, well, you're going to be crestfallen for one thing, and secondly, there's not enough time for you to possibly manage to get involved in fixing your proposal to meet their concerns. Anything else from your point of view, Celeste?
Yeah, with that in mind, I receive a lot of phone calls on the deadline day, and a lot of times it's from people who started that morning uploading documents.
Oh, good too.
Yeah, and they run into some kind of a glitch. Another reason there was a proposal that was returned without review this past year, because they waited until the last minute, and instead of, they thought that they had copied and were uploading their proposal description, their 15 pages, and what they uploaded was the 1-page project summary twice.
Yeah, I always try to load. I plan to load everything at least a week ahead of time. You can always unload and reload if you're still editing things, but it's very important to get some of the things done. Plus, there are things that you can get done well in advance. If you know who the PIs and co-PIs are, you can get the bio sketches done and get them up there. You can work on this over time. Well, I would like to thank...
That's a great idea.
Okay. Well, this is from experience of going, oh my gosh, we're not going to get it in on the last day.
Yep.
I think we have walked in those shoes. So if there are no other questions, I would like to thank you, Dr. Carter. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say there was one other request, Ann, and that's basically, would you be kind enough to provide your grid in the resources slides for this session so that they're accessible to everybody?
Sure, I can do that.
Perfect. Okay.
Happy to do that. Okay. Well, I'd like to thank everyone. Do we have more slides, Janet, or is this the end? We do have more slides. We have 2 upcoming webinars on creating dashboards for grant development and grant management, and that one's going to be led by Dr. Lasecki, who is not available today. And then we're talking about PLA, prior learning assessments for recruitment and retention of special adult populations in June, and then again in July. Next slide. I suspect it's still there. High Tech, we invite you to come to the High Tech conference. This is going to have a lot of sessions put on by people who have grants and others. I learn a lot at this session. And then remember that, next slide, we have the DOL and NSF workforce convening. The work we are doing in the CCTA project originally was to provide technical assistance only to the Department of Labor grants. However, we are providing assistance to NSF people and people who don't have grants at all. Before this session, though, on Friday, it's not the 20th, it's actually the 21st. I didn't catch that. On Friday the 21st, to get the maximum benefit out of that session, you should review any of the sessions that you did not actively attend. You should make sure that you already have your good idea and a draft of a proposal pretty well put together, because that's going to be your opportunity to get really good solid feedback from the program officers and other PIs who have done this over and over again. Next slide. Now it's your turn for the webinar, and we appreciate all of you coming. I offer, if you would like to email me, I'm happy with that. I'm happy for you to email me and ask questions. Same thing for Dr. Carter. I'm sure she is too. If our emails are not on this presentation, I know they were on the last one. So I'd like you to thank you for your time and have a great day. Thank you, Dr. Carter. Thank you, Janet.
Yes.
And I look forward to hearing from some of you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you all.
Good day.
This officially ends the webinar for today. Have a nice day. Bye.